If you're looking at buying your first home in Canada right now, you're probably looking at the state of real estate prices and going, how the heck am I ever going to be able to even afford a down payment? And even if I could, how am I going to be able to afford those monthly payments? You're probably saving every single dollar you've got just for that down payment right now. Well, you could right now, like that, double your down payment and lower your monthly mortgage payments if you took advantage of the Government of Canada's first-time homebuyer incentive program. But buyer beware, this program may not be as magical as it seems at first sight. So what we're going to do on this episode of Bald Prairie Real Estate is we're going to break down the Government of Canada's first-time homebuyer incentive program and see if it makes sense. Should you use this program to buy your first home in Canada? We're going to take a look at it right after the break. Hey guys, welcome back to Bald Prairie Real Estate. If you're new here, my name is 𝗵𝗵𝗴, otherwise known as your favorite bald real estate agent from Regina, Saskatchewan. If you like keeping up to date on the Canadian real estate market or just want some tips and tricks on buying and selling real estate in Canada, go ahead, hit that subscribe button right there. You'll never miss another of my videos ever again. But you know why the invisible man turned down his dream job? He just couldn't see himself in it. Okay, on this episode of Bald Prairie Real Estate, what I want to do is break down the CMHC First-Time Homebuyer Incentive Program. Now, that's not to be mixed up with the CMHC First-Time Homebuyer Program. That's a little bit different. That's where you can use RSPs as part of your down payment. The First-Time Homebuyer Incentive Program is a Government of Canada second mortgage. And what it does is it increases your down payment, reduces your monthly mortgage payments, and reduces those mortgage insurance fees that you have to pay if you're putting down less than 20% in Canada. So we're going to look at this program, go through a couple different scenarios and examples to see if it makes sense to use this program, and if you are going to use it, what is it going to cost you after you've bought that house and decided to sell it, or you've had it for 25 years, what's it going to cost you to pay that loan back? If you're thinking about buying a house in Canada right now, especially if you're a first-time home buyer, and you probably are, that's why you clicked on this video, I bet you have a ton of questions. And one of them is, should you even buy a house in Canada right now with how crazy the projections are for the Canadian real estate market, going up, going down, and all over the place? Well, guess what? You're in luck, because I just did a video right here about whether you should buy a house in Canada right now. So go ahead, hit pause on this video, go check that one out, because this one we're talking about CMHC's First-Time Homebuyer Incentive Program. What this program is, and it was launched in late 2019, was a second mortgage program in order to help Canadians, first-time home buyers, this is what this is geared for, be able to afford their down payment and their monthly mortgage costs. The worry was, as costs on Canadian houses have continued to increase over the years, it was more and more difficult for first-time home buyers to be able to save up for that down payment and then pay their monthly mortgage costs. So the Government of Canada has this first-time homebuyer incentive program, which is a second mortgage. On a resale house in Canada, you have to put down at least 5% on any house, but if you put down 5% on a resale house in Canada, the CMHC First-Time Homebuyer Program will provide an additional 5%, making your down payment 10%. Then, if you're buying a new construction house, you can put down as much as you want, but the Government of Canada will match up to 10%. But if you're using the First-Time Homebuyer Program, you cannot exceed 20%, so 19.99%. What this is going to do is, of course, it's going to lower the amount which your monthly mortgage payments are going to be. And the second thing that's really advantageous is going to be it's going to reduce what you have to pay in your mortgage default insurance fees. If you put down less than 20% in Canada, you have to have mortgage default insurance. Now, I'm going to do a whole video on mortgage default insurance in Canada, but for right now, if you check out this video right here, that's my video that's all about CMHC's new lending requirements to acquire mortgage insurance in Canada. And I've got a crash course on there all about mortgage default insurance. But of course, if you're going to take advantage of this government first-time homebuyer incentive program, there's going to be some requirements. And what's it going to cost to pay that back? Well, the requirements are, first, you cannot have a household income more than $120,000. And you cannot spend more than 4 times your household income. So it's $480,000 is what this program is capped out at. That's what your mortgage amount can be, your down payments on top of that. So it limits what your maximum purchase amount is. If you're buying a house and not using the first-time homebuyer program, you can generally spend 5 times what your yearly income is. So this program does reduce what your maximum purchase amount is. And of course, you're going to have to repay it back. So You can repay it at any time you want, but you must repay it either when you sell the house or after 25 years, whichever comes first. And because the government has got a mortgage on your house, they're essentially taking a shared equity in your house. So if your house goes up in value, the government will take a proportionate share of that increase. If your house goes down in value, they will also share in that loss. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go through a couple examples here. We're going to look at, well, if your house goes up in value or down in value, or do some renovations to the house, does it make sense to use this program? So what I have for you guys here is 3 examples. We're going to go through these, and this was a mortgage calculator that I actually created specifically to answer this question from my own clients, because when this program came out, I wasn't sure if it made sense depending on a client's specific situation. So I built this mortgage calculator, and you guys are going to get to see it in person, in action. These 3 examples, the first one's going to be somebody who buys a house and that house declines in value in line with the CMHC predictions of an 18% decline in home prices over the next year. And they're going to keep that house for 5 years and make no improvements to the home. The second example is where a homeowner has modest increases in that home value, and they're going to keep it for 10 years and do some minor renovations. The third example is a homeowner who keeps the home for the full 25 years, and they've done some fairly significant renovations, and home prices increase along with the historical Canadian average as home prices have increased over the last 100 years. So we're going to look at those 3 examples and see where each one of those ends up. Here we go.
For all my examples, the way we're going to have this here is this top part of the screen is going to show a person who doesn't use the first-time homebuyer program. The bottom part of the screen is going to be somebody who does use the first-time homebuyer program. There's a couple of constants. They're going to stay the same in all the examples. $300,000 will be the purchase price. The interest rate will be 2.35%. They're going to be paying monthly payments with a 25-year amortization period. So let's look at the first example I want to talk about. And this is if the CMHC worst case scenario happens and prices in Canada drop 18% over the next 12 months. So what I've done here is the average expected appreciation, or in this case depreciation, is 3.5% a year, which just gets us to 17.5% after the 5 years when the person is going to sell. So this is that buyer that is selling their house after 5 years, and they're going to do no improvements to their property. The monthly mortgage payment for somebody who does not use the first-time homebuyer program is just shy of $1,300 versus the person who does use the first-time homebuyer program. It's about $1,221. So they're saving $77 every single month. Over the course of 5 years, they'll save $4,600. But what happens when they go to pay that back? Well, they have to pay here. Their end value of their home is $247,000 when they go to sell it. They've got negative equity in the house. And so they're actually $7,000 behind the person who does use the first-time homebuyer program. That's because the government shared in the loss that was incurred on that house when it had to be sold because it declined in value. So that initial payment, that loan they had to make was $15,000, but because the government's sharing in the losses, it's actually a $12,375 repayment. So that's where the person who does use the first-time homebuyer program ends up $7,000 ahead. Now they're still losing money on the house. This would not be a good outcome for somebody who's buying a house right now, but they're going to be $7,000 ahead of the person that didn't use the first-time homebuyer program. So in this case here, because home values are going to be going down, they're not making any improvements to the house, it makes sense to use the first-time homebuyer program. Number 2, constants are all the same: $300,000 purchase, 2.35% interest rate, monthly payments, 25-year amortization. But this time, the homeowner is going to stay in the house for 10 years. Now that's a little bit more than the average of 7 years. 7 years is on average how long a typical Canadian will stay in one house before selling. The first example, they're in there for 5 years, which is a little bit less. So I picked somebody who's in a house for a little bit longer for this example. The previous example, somebody was there for a little bit less than the average. In this case here, they're going to get 2% increase in value per year on average for their home value. If you want some historical context, in the last 100 years in Canadian home prices, the average before inflation is between 3 and 7% per year. The mortgage payment, monthly payment stays the same, both examples, whether they're going to be using the first-time homebuyer program or not, and they still save that $77. But because they're in for 10 years, the person using the first-time homebuyer program saves almost $9,300 in payments versus the person that didn't. But this time, this homeowner has decided to do some improvements. They've done $10,000 in improvements. So that is their home increased in value by $10,000 because of the improvements that they made. Now, just because you put $10,000 does not mean your home increases by $10,000. In fact, most studies show that your return on investment is actually less than what you put in. I'm going to link 𝗕𝗵 𝗕𝗁𝗁's video up in the cards here so you can check it out, because he did a really good breakdown of how much your home will increase in value depending what types of things you do to improve the value. Don't believe the home improvement shows, because often it doesn't get you more money than what you put in. So his video is going to be up in the cards. You can check that out. He's got a great breakdown on that. But when this person goes to sell, because their house increased in value this time, it's worth $370,000. And when they sell that home, this does not include legal fees, real estate fees, they're going to walk away with about $170,000. Same thing, $370,000 value. But because the home increased in value, the repayment is $18,500. Their initial loan was $15,000, but the repayment, because that was up in value, is $18,500. Their what I call effective dollars in pocket, so that includes what the home value is and the money they saved, ends up that this person also is probably better ahead by using the first-time home buyer program by about $2,700. So that's example number 2, where we've got a fairly modest increase in values and some small improvements in the house, and they've owned it for 10 years. Example number 3, kept all the constants the same, $300,000 purchase, 2.35% interest rate, monthly payments, they're going to pay it back over 25 years, but in this case, the buyer is going to have the home for the full 25 years when they were required to repay that loan. They're also going to do $50,000 improvements over those 25 years. So they're going to make their house $50,000 more valuable by doing improvements such as new kitchens, floors, etc. Maybe they built a garage. And the home price is going to increase at 5.5% per year. So that is kind of right in the middle of the Canadian historical average, between 3 and about 7% increases before inflation per year. That's been the historical average in the last 100 years in Canada. So when they go to repay this year, let's see where they're at. The mortgage payments again are the same. They're still saving that $77, but they've saved $23,000 in payments over that 25 years. That is a substantial amount. But they go to sell the house, or they have to repay it in 25 years. What happens? Well, the home now is worth $762,000. That loan that was $15,000 originally is now $38,000. So in this case here, because this homeowner was in the house for a long period of time, the full 25 years, and they did some substantial improvements to increase the value of the home, they're $15,000 ahead. And this is where the program starts to kind of fall apart. If you're in your home for a long period of time, you're going to be doing some improvements to the house, and you expect to have reasonably accurately historic home increase values, then you're going to be ahead by substantially amount by not taking the first-time home buyer program.
So should you use the Government of Canada's first-time home buyer incentive program? Well, it's not exactly a black and white yes or no answer. These examples I've gone through, they're of course not a fully exhaustive list of all the possibilities, more what I thought are 3 very plausible outcomes if you're a first-time home buyer and you bought a house in Canada right now. But it boils down to, I think, some very critical factors. If you think that house prices are not going to increase in Canada, you don't plan on doing any major renovations to the house, and you're not going to be there long term, if all 3 of those are true, you should probably take advantage of the first-time home buyer incentive program. You'll probably end up better off. But if you think that house prices may increase, if you think that you're going to be doing some major renovations to the house, or that you're going to be there long term, if any one of those 3 are true, or going to be true, possibly be true, I would recommend probably not using the first-time homebuyer incentive program, because in the long run, what you're going to have to pay back is going to be more than what you will save by using the program. So after seeing all these examples, are you going to use the first-time homebuyer incentive program, or are you even going to buy a house in Canada right now? Let me know in the comments below. I love hearing what you guys are thinking. Now, if you want to get a more updated picture on where the Canadian real estate market is going, I've got that right here. This is a series of videos that's going to go through the most recent market update I've got, break down where the Canadian real estate market's at. If you're a first-time home buyer, you've probably got a bunch of questions. Well, guess what? I've got a series of videos right here That's entirely dedicated to you, the first-time home buyer, and answering as many of those questions as you have. If you're in the Regina area and you're looking to buy and sell a house, well, give me a call or send me an email. I'm gonna put my contact information below so you can get in contact with me. If you're not in the Regina market, but you still want some help, guess what? I know some fantastic real estate agents in your market and I can put you in touch with them. So send me some information, I'll get you in touch with them. Thanks for watching, everyone.